Hello, this is Matt Singer. I'm the Arts and Culture Editor at Willamette Week, and today I am speaking with Lance Bangs. And even if you don't recognize that name, you have 100% seen something that he has been involved in. He is a director and documentarian who has worked with everybody from Green Day to Kanye West to Dave Chappelle, and probably most famously with the Jackass crew, along with way more people than would have time to list here. Lance, thanks for talking to me today.
Yeah, thank you for reaching out. Hope that you're holding up okay.
I'm not doing too bad. And we'll get into how you're doing. So as I kind of insinuated there, you strike me as somebody who is sort of always in work mode, or at least who is always creating in some form. So what have the last 2+ months been like for you now that your sort of ability to work in the form that you're used to has been curtailed?
Yeah, I tend to stay fairly active, like you alluded to, making multiple projects kind of overlapping at the same time. And then things that you made a year ago or 6 months ago get released, and then it's time to kind of promote them or let people know that they existed if you were secretive about them while you originally made them. So at the time that we started becoming aware of issues flaring up, sort of January, February, that there was a new strain, a novel COVID out there in the world. I was doing some screenings in San Francisco at a music festival called Noise Pop of some past documentaries. I was beginning to shoot on a new Jackass feature film. And when we shoot those movies, we try to be discreet about the fact that we're making them so that, it gives us a better chance to shoot hidden camera footage and not have people expect or know that we're out there in the world filming something like that. It also helps in most projects, in my opinion, to not really talk about them while you're making them and to kind of wait so that they don't feel stale or like, oh, I heard about that like a year and a half ago, it must not be good. There's a risk of that if you kind of talk about things too soon. So we were being pretty low key about the fact that we'd gotten, the entire cast was back together. We'd started shooting a new film in Southern California. Someone at Paramount made an announcement or put it on a release that it was coming out next year, which kind of tipped the larger culture off that it was happening. But we went ahead and were shooting footage when things began to kind of swell up with awareness that we had friends in other parts of the world that were falling ill and having strange symptoms. So on the set of the production, we started wearing face masks and washing our hands and being conscious of that. And then as it kind of like swelled up further at the beginning of March, it felt like, okay, let me just jump on a plane and get back to Portland to take over with my family and look out for people here and stop traveling and stop being in physical proximity to other people.
So what have you been doing then since production stopped and you've been stuck at home? What have you been doing to kind of fill that void?
I also am someone that kind of likes to stay active and busy and maintain friendships that involve creating things. And so I began a new streaming show called Status Update that we've been building and developing, recording remotely, individually over Zoom and other formats like that, and then using a program called OBS, which is kind of an open source streaming program. And we went through all the kind of testing phases. We worked with like Mark Mothersbaugh from Devo, who's a film composer. And he did a bunch of like really great, weird solo art damage covers of I Want to Be Sedated by the Ramones and things like that. And we realized that like when you're doing them in real time over Zoom or, Facebook Live or whatever, those kind of things, there's a lot of drawbacks to the audio quality and the compression and latency. So we began figuring out like better approaches to record things with people individually and get the audio separate as a multi-track and sync that and then have that ready to present. So we've been kind of shooting a lot of footage for that. We have not decided whether we're going to launch that on Twitch or YouTube Live. There have been a couple different offers that we're figuring out, but that's a variety show called Status Update that we're about to launch with a lot of great footage and material. And a strong component of that will be interviews where the audience can in real time speak to people from the space station or musicians or bizarro heart damage comedians.
As a documentarian, which is one of the hats that you wear, have you been making any attempts to sort of personally document this kind of time in history from your own perspective, in your own world?
Quite a bit. I tend to, shoot stuff in my surroundings fairly consistently. and have taken precautions and care not to be out risking anybody for transmission or exposure, but have discreetly built an archive of footage of what Portland has looked like during this era, what things have looked like for friends, talking to friends and recording them over Zoom just to sort of like, how are you feeling? What's your life like now? What was it going to be like if this wasn't going on? To sort of preserve all these things for archival reasons. And that's something that's kind of always been a compulsion of mine and has continued during this.
You also, most of the people that you work with are, in the creative performing arts field, musicians, comedians, like you mentioned, and, you do a lot of, you shoot a lot of concert films is a lot of what you do. And obviously it's going to be a long time before there are, stand-up concerts or, music concerts in front of a live audience again, as we're used to. It'll probably be like the last thing that'll come back.
Yeah.
Do you have a sense of what that effect is going to be on artists and the work that they create?
Yeah, a lot of peers and friends are also in the sort of performing musician or comedian world where, things that they had expectations of going and doing tours later this year are all pushed a year or off on hold. I think it's a healthy thing for people to have their world shaken up and disrupted if they can survive health-wise and find ways to kind of like challenge themselves to find different outlets of expressing themselves or making things. It's been a good time to sort of reevaluate things that I was doing and the amount of travel I've been doing and realize that like as a creative person, now is the time to sort of invent new approaches or new ways of making personal work and sharing it and finding people that will respond to it and then finding ways ideally after the thing is made to survive off of it financially.
So since the cat's already out of the bag about Jackass, what's the status of that now? Do you have any sense of when that's going?
Yeah, like not to be hyperbolic, but like the chemistry had been so great and the guys were doing so well and all the ideas that they'd built up for the past 10 years since we did the third Jackass film were so fun and strong, and everyone's in a fairly good place now at this moment in time with their personal lives and mental health. And it's just a great feeling of having Owen back and contributing and amplifying things and the energy that builds up among them when we start filming. And we were getting really compelling, really strong footage almost immediately. So we've all kept in touch during this stalled section of the production. And the intention is to sort of try and resume when it's safe later this year and to still try and hit the release date, which is, I think, July of 2021. So I think we'll probably cut down on things that involve crowds or exposure in the public or things like that. But if we just film things in a backyard that we have control over and we're taking precautions and staying apart from each other, there's plenty of stuff that they can get up to that's funny and entertaining and will be great for people to watch whenever it's safe to watch things again.
That's interesting. It seems like this is actually going to affect what this film is going to be.
Yeah, I mean, that's not entirely up to me, but I would predict that. I think that there's stuff, there's kind of these different pools of things that get shot for the Jackass films, and some of them can be just done in a backyard with a cheap kiddie pool that we fill with water and do weird stunts into. I think there'll be more of that than flying to the middle of Tokyo to be in a crowded spot doing pranks on people like we did on the first film.